Huge news this morning. Colin Powell has died at 84. His family says it was due to complications from COVID-19, even though he was fully vaccinated. He was the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Secretary of State, and National Security Advisor. Now, one of the things I find particularly interesting in this story is that all of these major mainstream news outlets are noting very blatantly that he was fully vaccinated. But he was 84. And they say he died of complications from COVID. Now, the New York Times just put of COVID-19. Many people are now saying, see, look, he was fully vaccinated. They're questioning whether vaccines work. Other people are saying this proves we need booster shots for those who are immunocompromised or elderly. I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor. You talk to your doctor about what makes sense for you. But I do think it's fascinating that the New York Times, they say, Colin Powell has died at 84 of COVID-19. He was fully vaccinated, his family says. We then have this from MSNBC. Powell was fully vaccinated from COVID-19, his family says. We then have this from the AP. Colin Powell's family said an announcement on social media that he had been fully vaccinated. We have lost a remarkable and loving husband, father, and grandfather, and a great American, the family said. And then we have this, which I think is important, from Nisikan Akpan, a PhD. Colin Powell was fully vaccinated at 84 years old, aka his death is an unfortunate reminder of why boosters are needed for older adults, i.e. weaker immune systems, and of why the pandemic needs to be brought under control ASAP. This is an individual verified, highly melanated WNYC editor, Health and Science, past Nat Geo. So saith this individual's bio. So perhaps that's the reason why many news outlets are highlighting the fully vaccinated thing. The reason why I think that is particularly interesting, though, is that it's going to sow doubts on the vaccine by having every mainstream organization put that out there. But if it's true, then so be it. I suppose the bigger challenge is that I'm more likely to get censored by simply pointing that out than these news outlets for saying it. But it is what it is, I suppose. If it happened, it happened, and it should be reported. In a Facebook post, which is actually kind of funny, and I don't mean to make light of this. I mean, I want to make sure you understand. I'm saying I'm making fun of Facebook. You know, I think death is sad, no matter who it was, even if it's someone like Colin Powell helping make the Iraq War possible, for instance. On Facebook, on General Colin L. Powell's verified Facebook, it says, General Colin L. Powell, former U.S. Secretary of State and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, passed away this morning due to complications from COVID-19. He was fully vaccinated. We want to thank the medical staff at Walter Reed National Medical Center for their caring treatment. We have lost a remarkable and loving husband, father, grandfather, and a great American, the Powell family. Now, what's funny about what Facebook does here is then below the post, it says, visit the COVID-19 Information Center for vaccine resources. And that's the point. This is the family of Colin Powell saying he was fully vaccinated. He died anyway. This is the mainstream media saying the same thing. And Facebook is like, check our resources. Look, I'm not going to talk about efficacy or anything like that. That's up to you. You go talk to your doctor, figure out what makes sense. But I do think it is very important we read a little bit about the obituary of Colin Powell. Just a little bit so you can understand some of the context. But I want to talk about something bigger here. And that is, well, as you know, there's more and more hypocrisy every day from the politicians demanding restrictions based on COVID that they flout. They completely ignore their own rules. And as we're getting a story of a man who was fully vaccinated and people are calling for booster shots, I think there's interesting questions about why particular individuals in politics would be calling for more restrictions, yet not following them. Well, here's the story from the New York Times, the obituary. They say, Colin L. Powell, who in 4 decades of public life served as the nation's top soldier, diplomat, and national security advisor, and whose speech at the UN in 2003 helped pave the way for the U.S. to go to war in Iraq, died on Monday. He was 84. Mr. Powell was a pathbreaker, serving as the country's first African-American national security advisor, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Secretary of State. Born in Harlem of Jamaican parents, Mr. Powell grew up in the South Bronx and graduated from City College of New York, joining the Army through ROTC from a young second lieutenant, commissioned in the dawn of a newly desegregated army. Mr. Powell served 2 decorated combat tours in Vietnam. He later was national security advisor to President Ronald Reagan at the end of the Cold War, helping negotiate arms treaties and end an era of cooperation. Arms treaties and an era of cooperation with the Soviet president, Mikhail Gorbachev. As chairman of the Joint Chiefs, he was the architect of the invasion of Panama in 1989 and of the Persian Gulf War in 1991 that ousted Saddam Hussein from Kuwait, but left him in power in Iraq. Along with then Defense Secretary Dick Cheney, Mr. Powell reshaped the American Cold War military that stood ready at the Iron Curtain for half a century. In doing so, he stamped the Powell Doctrine on military operations, armed with clear political objectives and public support. Used decisive and overwhelming force to defeat enemy forces. Let me just state, not a guy I would consider to be a good person. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not going to play silly games. I will say this, as I said, of even John McCain. I'm sure that... he was doing some kind of service. I won't revel in anyone's death or anything like that. But these are warmongers. These are just bad people. And I genuinely believe that most people think they're doing something good. I don't believe that Colin Powell was sitting there being like, I'm going to invade Iraq. I'm sure he was like, if we do this, it'll be good for everybody except the Iraqi people. And Americans will get oil and all that other stuff. It's just American empire. I'm not a fan. I'm not going to act like this is a good person, in my opinion. No, I think he's a bad person. But I think it's another example of, at the very least, when the media says fully vaccinated over and over again, it feels like they're laying the groundwork, in my opinion, for booster shots. But I have to wonder why it is that so many of these elites don't follow their own rules. I will stress this story as well, which is coming out, just a few days ago. Unvaccinated 11 times more likely to die from COVID-19 than fully vaccinated. I'm showing you this because I know there's a lot of people. There was some data, I think it was out of Massachusetts. There's some data out of West Virginia showing that vaccinated individuals were dying at high rates. Those stories, I believe, are true, but they're also just individual locations. I actually did the math on this one, and there was a number, I can't remember the exact number. I think it was a 0.00018% chance of catching and dying from COVID if you are healthy and under 40. The reason I say that is because I've actually looked up a lot of the different metrics and data from across the country, and this is actually one of the numbers I based my calculation off of. So, framing is everything. I can come out and be like, if you are healthy under 40, your chances of catching and then dying of COVID is extremely low. That being said, I did use this data as well, which is to say that when you take into account all demographics, unvaccinated are substantially more likely to die based on the data that I've reviewed so far. But again, I talk to your doctor, talk to a trusted medical professional. Joe Rogan apparently had a doctor that he thought was good, that CNN thought was bad. So that's between him and his doctor, because I don't know. I will say, however, for all these news outlets to be highlighting the fully vaccinated thing is interesting. It is. Let's take a look at. Okay, so that. All right. This is more booster shot stuff. This is why I pulled up this tweet. A lot of people are saying that the media won't highlight that he's fully vaccinated, and I do find this fascinating. Diane Gallagher says former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell has died. Then we see people saying, will the mainstream media let us know he was fully vaccinated? One person says, I'm going to bet they won't. Another man says, what are you talking about? They literally say this. I know, but what? Front and center. Okay. And then we can see the response. But was he boosted? There you go, my friends. I don't think the vaccine mandate is about mandating vaccines. I think it's about mandating practice. They talk about grade schools. They say, you know why grade schools have the bell that rings? It was to train kids to work in factories, because that's when the shift end happened. The bell would ring and you knew your shift was over and you'd leave. So they did that in school so kids would grow up and then be ready to work in factories, which is kind of weird because it's like, did they think factories would last forever? I don't know. They started selling our factories to Mexico, in China, Japan, Vietnam, etc. Clothing in Bangladesh. You get the point. Smirking Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot brazenly breaks her own COVID rules by going barefaced in masked crowd at basketball game, then sharing it on her Twitter account. Flouting. Flaunting. Laughing. No regard for her own rules. Yeah. The vaccine mandate is not about about the vaccine. Mask mandates are not about masks. It is not about COVID. It is about compliance. And for these people, they don't have to comply, and they never will. That's the game, isn't it? The Daily Mail says controversial Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot hit the headlines again after breaking her city's own mask rules to pose for a photo barefaced at a basketball game. Lightfoot shared the snap of herself smiling while surrounded by scores of fans. All of them masked after the game at Chicago's Wintrust Arena Sunday night. What a moment. Congrats, champs. First, but not the last, for Chicago Sky. She tweeted, while the WNBA title with an 80-74 win over the Phoenix. There's all of the other plebs wearing their masks, and you can tell they're all like laughing or smiling, but she doesn't got to abide by the rules. Lightfoot shared the snap despite Illinois' statewide mask mandate requiring all sporting fans over the age of 2 to wear masks at the Wintrust Arena, regardless of their vaccination status. Lightfoot's lack of a mask quickly caught the attention of followers on Twitter who were less than impressed. So I have family in Illinois, and they tell me it's bad. And it's really weird to be in West Virginia and like the tri-state area around Harpers Ferry and just have none of this at all. No mask mandates, no vaccine mandates, and life just seems to be kind of normal, except for all the shortages and the economic collapse. Yeah, you get it. It's not the look. You know, I see these stories in the mainstream media, and I'm not trying to. It does seem kind of weird to be like, hey, look, Colin Powell died, and also look at this other political stuff. But I think it's relevant in the context of how the news stories are handling it. And I think it's relevant in the context of what we're going to be dealing with moving forward. This is a high-profile story where they're telling us all that he was fully vaccinated. It's a great justification for booster shots. They're going to lay that groundwork for some time. They're going to come out and say you need booster shots. And then do you think the wealthy and powerful elites are going to follow any of these rules? Look, I don't know if Lori Lightfoot is vaccinated, but I'm willing to bet tons of these powerful and wealthy elites are not. Seriously. You'd think that they would be because they have money and access, but I'm willing to bet they're not, simply because they don't play by the rules. They go out and do whatever they want. If look, I'll put it this way. Lori Lightfoot should wear a mask to help slow the spread, right? Right. She should also be vaccinated, right? Okay. Well, she's not wearing a mask. She clearly doesn't care about COVID, right? Why would she then go get vaccinated? Why should I assume? Now, I don't know. Maybe there's a video of her doing it. The point I'm saying is there's probably a lot of high-profile elites who haven't done it. The interesting thing, too, I'll say about this, Tucker Carlson. I'm willing to bet Tucker Carlson didn't get vaccinated. Working at a company like Fox News where they have a vaccine mandate. It could be that Tucker is contracted and isn't an official employee, but I don't know. And I don't know about Tucker Carlson's situation. He's not, talking too much about it. But take a look at this story from the New York Post. Biden's seen violating D.C.'s indoor mask mandate at pricey restaurant. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, the plebs will all wear their masks and the wealthy and powerful elites will do whatever they want. Okay, well, they say Colin Powell was fully vaccinated. I have no reason to believe he wasn't. I mean, you can't just make a conspiracy out of every single circumstance. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who saw a video of Joe Biden getting his booster shot. And, even Joe Rogan questioned if they actually gave him a real vaccination because it was live. And, what if he had an adverse event or whatever? And I'm just like, it's probably just a booster shot. And the simple solution tends to be the correct one. But of course, when you're dealing with the president, you're going to have different circumstances. Here we can see that Joe Biden he's not wearing a mask. And the Biden's seen violating the mask policy. They don't care. Biden's not worried about spreading COVID. I'm not even convinced he's worried about getting it. But, there's a lot of people who think that he would fake it. And I don't believe in any big, grandiose conspiracies like that. I do think, however, that when it comes to the media, they will want to put out that, oh, no, look at these people who were vaccinated and got sick. Oh, geez, we're going to need booster shots. It's going to be great for Pfizer and these big pharmaceutical companies who want to sell more vaccines. And it's going to be great for compliance in the long run. If they can keep scaring you into mandates and no one stands up, then they need only a certain threshold. It would be like if you had 50% of the people saying they will abide by a rule, but 50% saying they won't, then the rule doesn't stick. You need a large group. If people are walking around New York not following the rules, why would anybody else? Some people will out of fear. Most people won't, and then you won't be able to maintain any kind of social credit system. But if you get a good amount of people to be compliant, then eventually someone will walk into a store, everybody will be wearing a mask, and they'll be like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll put the mask on. Then you can say, oh, get your app. Then you can just increment after increment, have people continually buy into what will ultimately turn into a mainstream social credit system. And they'll do all sorts of things. You'll have your full medical history on it. They'll say, have you gotten your full vaccine series or schedule or whatever? It won't just be one shot. It won't just be one booster. It's going to be other things. I don't know if it ultimately ends up with like, you jaywalked, lose 1 point. I think that's what it's like in China. But I think that's where we're going. We already have a credit system. And I think it's like kind of awful because it makes no sense. Credit scores in general make no sense. And we're sitting here being like, social credit is bad. Well, what about regular credit? FICO scores are awful. We already live under that boot. I mean, come on, you guys all know it. The working class all know it. You have no credit, you can't get a loan. What was that? You have bad credit, you can't fix it. It's amazing to me that you can pay a cell phone bill perfectly on time every time. It doesn't improve your credit. But you miss one payment, they'll report it, and boom, your credit collapses. It is very difficult to maintain a basic credit system. And there's not a big difference between social credit and our existing credit system. What's the difference? You want to buy some land right now? Hope you got good credit. How do you get good credit? Have money. No, seriously. The funny thing is, I would say this. I have really good credit, but I know people who are, less well off than I am who have way better credit because it's a game. It's a game about compliance. It's a game about taking out tons of credit cards and then paying off the minimum every month so you can show that your credit history is good. But if you're paying off your credit card every day or you don't have credit because you don't want debt, your credit is bad. Isn't that funny? If you say, I don't need your debt in order to live and buy a house or whatever, they say, you have bad credit. Well, you have no credit. Sorry, not enough credit history. It makes sense on the surface, right? Like, how are we supposed to loan you money if we don't know if you're going to be capable of paying it back and be responsible? Think about what that means moving forward for social credit systems. I think it'll be a nightmare, and we've already seen it. Take a look at this from the Daily Mail. Woman 65 with end-stage liver disease is denied life-saving transplant because she refuses to have COVID vaccine over religious and medical fears. Denied life-saving transplant. Michelle Vitullo, 65, was set to get her daughter Angela's kidney this month. The Cleveland clinic canceled the procedure because they're unvaccinated. Kidney or liver? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't. Yeah, liver disease. End-stage liver disease. I guess, okay, the liver disease, she needs a kidney. All right, my mistake. Then we get the news that we're taken off the list. Daughter Angela, 43, who was worried about adverse reactions from the shot. Jim, Michelle's husband, said, to us, it's a big mistake. It's against our beliefs. Michelle's future may be in jeopardy if she doesn't get the life-saving procedure. I feel bad because my grandkids, they say, Grandma, we're praying for you to get better. Michelle told a local TV station. Now, this one's a remarkable story. You may have seen it. This story's been going around. This one's remarkable. It may be a different one. There may be more than one story of this. I think it might be more than one. If you do not abide by what we demand, you die. Now, that is something else. That's what social credit score means. If you're not in line with what the establishment has decreed, even though they don't follow their own rules, we're going to let you die. That's right. You will not get a kidney from a willing participant who wants to give it to you. Sorry. That's where this goes. This is where things escalate to. The credit system is bad enough, right? You get one bad debt, you miss a payment, your credit goes in the gutter. Even when you want to just get your credit checked, they nuke your credit. Hard inquiry is bad for your credit. Why? Because they're trying to hold you back. Trying to hold you back. Apply that to a social credit system. You're late for work and all of a sudden, bad social credit, and you're like, but when I'm here on time, no one cares. Well, you're supposed to be here on time. Being late is wrong, so we'll give you a mark. And then what? I wouldn't be surprised if in 20 or 30 years we have a hard number. Your social credit score is 75 out of 100. Or whatever. I don't know. FICO is 400, 800, whatever, which is like the weirdest thing ever. It's like that episode of Black Mirror. You see it? Where the woman she has like a good credit score. And she's like all chipper and cheery, but then she's trying to like make it to a wedding or something, and everything goes wrong. And the angrier she gets, the more her score goes down. And because her score goes down, she can't get a car, and it makes everything worse. And then she's in the gutter. Can't have that. I don't know if that's exactly how it will manifest, right? The Black Mirror stuff is like a vision of what the future may hold. But I just got to say, if you take a look at how things have been implemented so far, we're escalating. That being said, however, I do feel a bit optimistic because the moves being made by the establishment, by the authoritarians, are so overt and nightmarish. I think it's waking a lot of people up. And that's why Joe Biden's approval rating is in the gutter. They're not going to be able to implement this stuff without making everybody just angrier and angrier. There would need to be like a cooling off period for people to calm down, like the Carl Richter rat hope experiment, where they take the rats out of the water. You get the point. And the rats feel hopeful. If they just keep beating people over the head with stories like this, then I think people are eventually just going to snap and be like, I ain't playing anymore. But maybe that's it. You know, a lot of people have said that in the Great Reset, the establishment wants massive super cities where people can't touch nature. I'm not convinced. I think they actually want people to be living like, you know, we talked about this with Alex Jones when he was mentioning the story Ishmael, that they want everyone to go back to a more primitive style of living. Yeah, I think the establishment wants people to homestead. I really do. Van life. YouTube promotes van life like crazy. Now millennials are like, wow, I'm so excited to be living in a van. Think about that. Our parents were like, going to buy a house, have kids, get married. Now it's like, I'm going to live in a van by myself with a cat. And YouTube promotes that stuff. Girl with snake in van, heavily promoted, millions of subscribers. That's going to influence culture. And they're doing it on purpose. I'm not saying they're trying to make people want to live in vans on purpose. I'm saying that's what they're promoting on purpose. So what happens? In the future, you will own nothing and you will be happy. Sad to hear the passing of Colin Powell, but not a fan of the guy. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.